I don't always understand why certain movies click with audiences and others don't. Why one movie is a box office hit and another movie tanks. Doctor Sleep was one of the best movies I saw last year. Um, to the point where I would have put it in the conversation of like best movies of the year. Of like overall, I know that a lot of movies like Parasite in 1917 came out. I think Doctor Sleep probably should have merited conversation with those movies. It is a horror movie that deals with alcoholism and the ramifications of abuse, and you know, paying it forward, paying forward the kindness and the generosity that you're shown, and going out and helping others. That's what this movie is about. And for a horror movie to tackle that is commendable. Now, this is a sequel to The Shining, very much so. I do not have it as part of a Shining Doctor Sleep 2 pack for one reason only, and that is The Shining is in my Stanley Kubrick collection. And so, there's just. And this is sort of. It is absolutely a sequel to The Shining. It takes all of the aesthetics from that movie at the end of the movie when they go back to the Overlook Hotel. But it's also an adaptation of Stephen King's book. And Stephen King famously hated Kubrick's movie. And this actually does a good job of writing the line and being an adaptation of the book while also being a sequel to Kubrick's film. It's very impressive how they do that. There's a lot of sort of, if you like the book, you could interpret something one way, and if you like the movie, you can interpret it another way. Ewan McGregor plays the grown-up Danny Torrance, a recovering alcoholic who is just trying to do good in the world and forget the ghosts that haunted him. And there's a young woman uh, named Abra who comes into his life, who is being pursued by a group called the True Knot, uh, led by Rebecca Ferguson's character, who they're basically like they're vampires, but they feed off of people's shine. And the movie does not shy away at all from showing us really, really graphic, horrific images of the way that they do this. There is a scene with the torture and murder of a young boy that is maybe the most disturbing thing I've seen in a movie in I don't even know how long. They don't shy away from it. They linger on it. Um, I was actually so glad watching the behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray to see that the little boy was okay, that he wasn't traumatized by the whole thing, that in between takes he's like up on his feet and he's joking around and everything, because I was like, oh my god, having to like act that at that age, that's intense. Um, and this movie doesn't. It gives its audience credit. It says we're going to take you know about The Shining. We're going to take you down that dark path, and we're going to stay consistent with that, and we're going to show you things that you don't want to see. It does an incredible job of that, and I wish they made more horror movies like this. They don't make them very often. You know, just a couple months before this came out, It Chapter 2 came out. And It Chapter 2 is just boo! You know, that's all it is. It's 3 hours of boo! You know, and this doesn't do that. There's a jump scare here and there. I mean, people who say, "Oh, jump scares are cheap," jump scares are cheap. The Exorcist had jump scares. Psycho has jump scares. That's not like a cheap. It's cheap to exploit it. To have a movie like Paranormal Activity where that's all it is like boo, 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 boo. You know, it's just jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. Doctor Sleep is, it's the kind of thing where I get, you know, as a writer myself, where you're told nowadays that you have to, you know, I had an agent tell me once, if you've got a nuclear bomb in your story, it better go off in the first paragraph. And I found that disgusting. Because Hitchcock, you know, the old, I mean, speaking of bombs, what he said about having a bomb is you show the bomb, you let the audience know that the bomb is there, but you don't let the characters know that the bomb is there. And that's tension. That's building something, which in a world of immediacy, of if you get bored, you can just grab your phone. You know, like the thing has to hook you immediately, because if you're not hooked in the first 2 seconds, then you just pick up your phone and you start scrolling around looking for those you know, whether it's a tweet or whether it's a 5-minute YouTube video, something immediate, quick. And Doctor Sleep doesn't play that game, and maybe it's the reason why it didn't do well in theaters. I think probably people maybe came away bored. They came away saying, "Where's the jump scares?" That's what a horror movie is. A horror movie is Annabelle. A horror movie is, you know, something like that. This takes you back to Rosemary's Baby. This takes you back to those classic horror films that took their time, that were about characters. This movie is about characters. The characters are not Friday the 13th stock characters that are just there to be knocked off. They're characters that you care about. You go on this journey with them, and the consequences of what happens to them are affecting on an emotional level. That's what we call a film. That's what we used to call a film. You know, there's a place for things like The Conjuring or Insidious. I like those movies. Not so much the Conjuring spin-offs, but the two primary Conjuring movies. I like those movies. This is a different kind of horror movie, and there's room for both. There's room for schlock, and there's room for slasher movies, and there's room for the classic Universal monster movies, and there's room for all of this, and a slow burn horror movie with atmosphere and great acting, and that you walk away from, and it really got you. It really affected you, like inside, not just sort of like, "Whew, that was scary," and it's like a you know, theme park ride. They don't make movies like this much anymore, and when they bomb, it makes Hollywood even more risk averse. Uh, and that's too bad, and that's where things like Netflix come in, and streaming services where or HBO or something like that, where they actually take chances, where they actually seem to be okay with, like, let's invest in this. This seems kind of cool. Let's put this out there. It's different. It's different than what people are getting, and it's why streaming services are really dominating right now, while Hollywood is just sort of running in place. You know, when you go onto a movie website and you see the top stories, and it's like, first image of Robert Pattinson in the Batman suit. Good Lord, how many times do we have to get the first image of somebody in a Batman suit? How many times do we have to have that reveal? Whether it's, oh, here's, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck. It gets old. It gets tiresome, the same old thing over and over again. And now it's a sequel. It's not like it's a wholly original thing. But in a lot of ways, it kind of is. I mean, I would call it more of a spiritual sequel to the Kubrick film. Again, a reason why I don't really mind it being in its own case apart from The Shining. Movies like this need to be made more, because the more that they are made, the more that people might want intelligence back in their entertainment. I give Doctor Sleep 5 out of 5. It's a movie that I've seen 3 times now. It gets better every time I see it, and I would recommend it to anybody who enjoys horror and who enjoys something that you have to take your time with and pay attention to. It's not a tweet. It's a movie, and movies are different. They're not boom immediacy. They can take their time, as the really good stories do, and lure you into their world before things go batshit insane. So go out and see Doctor Sleep. It's absolutely worth the watch. If you're a fan of The Shining, if you're a fan of Stephen King, if you're a fan of horror, or if you're just a fan of good movies.